What do you think separates a technically strong engineer from an effective project manager? So, where's the gap that shows up most often there?
Communication, right? I feel like that is the number one thing. Might sound a little cliche, but I really believe that it is so true. Like communication and proactive ownership from both sides. A technically strong engineer knows how to solve problems much more broadly, like how decisions affect your schedule and budgets and clients.
Most engineers spend years mastering the technical side of their work and then step into project management and quickly realize that technical skill alone is not enough. The ability to design a solution and the ability to lead the people delivering it are two very different things, and the gap between them is wider and more costly than most firms anticipate. Today's guest knows that gap firsthand. Jennifer Oltman, PE, is a project manager at Kimley Horn. With a background rooted in civil and environmental engineering and years of experience leading complex land development projects. In this episode, we're talking about how to build the communication systems that keep scope, budget, and schedule on track. What it actually takes to develop someone into a strong, effective project manager, and how to hold a team accountable to results without taking away the autonomy they need to do their best work. If you're a firm leader trying to build the next generation of project managers or an engineer navigating that transition yourself, this episode is for you. Before we jump in, I want to tell you about AEC PM Connect, a series of in-person events we've created at EMI for AEC project managers and the leaders who develop them. If you want to stay on top of PM trends, elevate your team, and deliver stronger project results, these full-day events are built for you. We're coming to Kansas City this October. Learn more and register at aecpmconnect.com. I'm your host, Fiona Johan, and this is the AEC Project Management Podcast. Let's jump right in. All right, now it's time for our PM Conversation of the Week with Jennifer Oltman, PE. Jennifer, welcome to the AEC Project Management Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy you could be here today. Could you start by walking us through your career path? And specifically, how did you move from civil engineer and environmental engineering into leading projects at a firm like Kimley Horn?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can start where it all began. I'm a graduate of Drexel University, and early on in my career, definitely focused more on the technical side of civil and environmental engineering. Just like everybody else, focused heavily on the design and the permitting and the day-to-day project execution. I worked at a smaller firm for the bulk of my career. I think where you don't really have the luxury of staying in one lane, so you get exposed to everything. Technical work and project coordination and client communication, operations, problem solving. And over time, that was what I really came to love. Actually, like surviving in that sink or swim kind of environment where you get to really have a lot of things going on at the same time, problem solving and things like that. So I would say like a lot of what I know is very self-taught, like learned by being thrown into situations, figuring things out in real time, asking questions. So at a smaller firm, there's usually like no perfectly structured way of doing things. And you learn because the project needs you to learn. And I think that environment really pushed me to grow quickly, taught me to adapt. And eventually that's pretty much how I came to Kimley Horn. Like I said, I really loved the project management aspect of the work, focusing on like client relations and managing teams and building relationships, basically all those moving pieces. So yeah, I think that's how I came to Kimley Horn, was really just focusing on that effort and trying to really advance my career with that. So
You hit on so many important things I think that so many project managers can relate to there. The whole learning because you have to, that is just I hear that from so many of our project managers all the time, right? And that's just the environment we're in. And I think people that end up in this field are typically just a little more motivated to do that, and that's why they end up there because it's the only way you're gonna make it.
It's true. It's true. I really got a lot of hands-on experience early on in my career. And like I said, figuring it out, a lot of things on the fly. I had some really good mentors along the way as well. But, in a fast-paced environment, like you've got to be able to, pivot and adapt. And I think that really led me to where I am today and working with the project technical side as well as with the client side is, what I really enjoy doing. And that's how I ended up here. And then, obviously like always learning, always, staying in that mindset of the industry and the world, are constantly changing and you always have something to learn. And I feel like I'm really exposed to that too, where I am now. And yeah, I love that. It's really important to me and I like continuing to do that.
That's wonderful. There's some of us that we won't enjoy our job if we don't keep learning, so it's important to
Yeah,
find
yeah, you
that.
have to keep learning, and I always say, like, you can learn something from anyone, from whatever your position, your age, your experience, you can always learn something from everyone. So, I hope that I can learn from other people, then they can learn from me, and, that's again why I love being in a project management type role.
You mentioned just a minute ago the, technical pieces and the people pieces. And I think most project managers are really familiar with needing to do both, right? You grow up on those technical skills and you sharpen those people skills along the way. Some people are just born with them, which is amazing. What do you think separates a technically strong engineer from an effective project manager? So, like, where's the gap that shows up most often there?
In my experience, I feel like I have lived it and I have also taught it as best as I can, but communication, right? I feel like that is the number one thing. Might sound a little cliche, but I really believe that it is so true. Like communication and proactive ownership from both sides, like a technically strong engineer knows how to solve problems like within their discipline. And then like an effective project manager has to think, much more broadly, like how decisions affect your schedule and budgets and clients, permitting, coordination, and all of that comes down to communication. So I feel like the best project managers as well as technical engineers don't wait for problems to become like emergencies or become big deals. You want issues to surface early, you want to communicate clearly. So I really value that with my team and I hope that they also kind of value that from me, whereas we're both open and honest in communication and always talking and being transparent. And like, I feel like that earns respect from both sides.
Strong leadership drives strong projects. Become an AEC PM professional and give your team the leadership skills they need to thrive. Customize PM development, premium content, and a leadership edge that sets you apart. Learn more at aecpm.com.
You hit on something really important there that I want to highlight. And you kind of talked about, the communication, but the rhythms of the communication. How are you building that in when it comes to reporting and making sure your scope and your budget and your schedule issues surface become real problems?
Yeah, I guess it really piggybacks on the last, question there of like consistency is key and consistency with communication. So I would say, I guess I try to create that rhythm where communication becomes part of our team culture. And, it's not something that only happens when there is some type of issue, that communication happens for all around good, bad, and then as we move along, we need to be able to have regular check-ins, focus on priorities, have calendar invites, discuss like upcoming milestones, like open action items. Like we want to keep going and have that, a rhythm on our projects. So you have to like really feel comfortable like raising questions early or speaking out loud or actually you know raising the questions as soon as we can. So with my own specific team. And now if we're, maybe talking more externally with our clients, like again, establishing that communication rhythm with them, like often giving them updates and understanding what information I need from them, what information they need from me, so that we can stay on scope and on budget, and on schedule, and communicating any problems with our clients early. So again, transparency builds trust with your team and builds trust with your clients, uh, and everyone appreciates honesty. So even when conversations might be hard or difficult, you want to give everybody the full picture and you want to be open and honest. So information, communication, transparency all earns respect, right? Like you want to be that way internally with your team and externally with your clients so that you can create one cohesive environment.
Totally agree. I think the key point in all of that is when you're communicating regularly and you're building all the cadences and the schedules of it, you teach people how to communicate with you as well, which is so important when something comes up, right? Like I know that Jennifer's always going to come to me with this thing around this time that's similar, and I can key into that, right? Because as humans, we like that routine and we like to know what's coming next. So having built those routines of like, oh, I work with Jennifer, I'm an external client, I know when she pops into my inbox, it matters. Or if she's calling me, I should pick up right now. I think that's just so important because we're essentially throughout this whole communication process training people on how we communicate as well, right? Even if it's not said directly.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I was gonna say, kind of along those lines, you need to learn everyone's communication style. So, kind of like going with what you just said, some team members internally and external clients, want to be told every little detail. They want you know to, you to just be emailing them nonstop, and some people do not want that. Some people want you to be clear and concise and only tell them what's important. So, like, kind of like what you were saying. So, I feel like you really have to learn each individual's perspective on that and manage that, to the best of your ability.
I totally agree. So when I think part of what happens when you're doing all this is that you're actually looking at, while you're doing this as a project manager, you're low key developing the next set of project managers, right? Like you're teaching people on your team what this looks like, what project management looks like. What do you think it actually looks like to develop someone into a strong project manager? And what does that growth process need to include in order for it to stick?
That's a really good question. I think it's maybe it's a long-winded answer to me, I think. But strong project managers develop through experience and mentorship and exposure, but that's coming probably more from a more personal, experience from what I had. Like I said, I feel like I was, the benefit of being into a lot of situations where you have to step up and especially working on a variety of different things. So I feel like that's what I want to portray to other people and help mentor them that, being a strong project manager is not just technical training. You need to be exposed to so many different aspects of a project and then uh, be involved in the technical work, the operations management, the client relationships, the scheduling, the team coordination, all the decision making. Like, to develop somebody, I don't hold that close to my chest. I like to keep everybody informed. Obviously, I guess there's a balance between too little and too much information, which probably we all, could learn a thing or two. But that's a kind of exposure that I try to get to my younger staff, to get them involved in the client meetings, to have them in the coordination discussions, to have them aware of the budget on the project, the problem solving early on in their careers, to give uh, suggestions to me, even if, like we can collaborate together and, not just producing the technical work that I gave you in the background. And again, I think that is really, truly what led me to Kimley Horn, where I am. And like, we really do encourage our staff to be active in all departments and take ownership, and take leadership roles. And yeah, like I feel like at some other firms, maybe like people may not include the younger staff as much as we do. And I'm really happy that I'm able to do that where I am and sort of expose, everybody to that and really help to develop their careers.
I love that. How are you balancing all of that with, holding your team accountable for their milestones and their deliverables, right? We want people to grow. We want them to learn to use their own judgment and have some autonomy. How do you balance that with, well, this still has to get done by X date?
Yeah, yeah, it's hard sometimes, right? But accountability starts with like clarity, expectations. You know, I think people perform well when their priorities and goals are communicated up front. So it circles back to setting milestones and calendar invites and keeping people, you know, up to speed on dates that change or things like that. So just communicating up front. I wouldn't say like that. I don't really believe maybe in micromanaging technical people. I feel like, a lot of the individuals can manage themselves and can take a stab at doing that from a technical perspective. So when we hire people, I guess we hire talented people and we trust their expertise. And as a project manager, our role is to create alignment and help them, right? Like we're removing obstacles or speaking for them or, like making sure that everybody like understands how their work pieces that puzzle together and comes to a bigger picture. And I keep saying it, but that's just communication, right? Like you have to be direct, transparent, create openness. If you want to meet your milestones and your deliverables, you need to tell people exactly what they are. And then if you're going to hit a roadblock, we need to communicate that. If there's a holiday or vacation even within something, like we need to communicate that. We need to be aware of everything that's going on. And then a lot of times when people understand more why they're doing things and exactly what the end result needs to be, they are much more aligned and much more willing to hit those milestones and take accountability for things. So like in the civil engineering land development world, like we're working towards permitting, and a lot of our projects are real life things that happen that we can see. And so it's a very rewarding experience that way. And that really, when we talk about how this project is going to benefit, whatever it is that we're doing, then we can really hold people accountable to milestones and deliverables because they see the bigger goal and the end picture of that.
And so in there, you mentioned, resetting expectations through communication with your team when things do start to slip. How are you doing that?
So I guess we try to understand the root cause, right, of the delay or, what has happened and try to look at it like clearly and objectively. Like, so what happened? Is it a scope issue? Is it a coordination delay? Is it a manpower issue or permitting or a client decision or some whatever it is? So then once we understand that issue, right, we can um, like communicate what becomes that priority, like what we need to do to solve that. So again, very transparent. People respect honesty, and especially during difficult situations. So having those proactive conversations is hopefully evading some of those issues, and hopefully we're not, a project doesn't start to slip. That's our goal, right? Is that so we just focus on regrouping the team around the priorities and the solutions. So what can we do to avoid the slips in the first place? And then if something did happen, how do we refocus that team? And then we just have to talk about it, right? Like we just have to understand what happened, what the impacts are, and then what the recovery plan is. So there's no scrambling per se, right? And then the same thing, again, on the client side, we deal directly with a lot of clients in civil and land development. Clients can handle challenges if they feel informed, right? And if they feel if they're confident that the team is being open and honest and solution oriented. So I feel it's very valuable. I really communicate to my clients when, I can see something foreshadowing. I could maybe see something happening. I want to get that in front of them early. I don't want to wait and say there's a problem. we tried, like I said, we try to head off problems really early so that things don't slip. And then we don't delay if we know something, even if if something's happening with our project, for whatever the reason, and we want to communicate that directly to the client and say, this is what happened, and this is the path forward. We never want to um, appear that we want to plan. We don't want to appear
Yeah,
that
you don't want to just identify the solution, the problem. You want to come in with a solution as well.
right. You want to come in with a solution. And then, like I said, proactively, or if something does happen, with internally with the team and externally with the client, I would immediately say, okay, we know it's here, and we're working on it, right? Like if I don't have a solution at that time. And again, I feel like open and honest communication really does earn respect. At least that's been my experience.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think, as someone who works internally and externally, just shooting a quick email saying, hey, we know about it. We're working on it. I'll get back to you tomorrow. Like just easing did you even know that this is a problem? Because if you say nothing, then they might assume, oh, they don't even know. Why aren't they talking to me?
Exactly. Right.
Or they're hiding something. Instead, you can
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
we flagged it. We will be back tomorrow with a solution.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, it depends on your specific person that you're addressing, internally or externally, how well you know them or something like that. But being organized in that manner, I absolutely completely agree. And it's my personality trait is to be more of what you basically just described, just to say, we know about it. This is what we're doing. We're going to address the problem and we have solutions. If here's the recommended solution, if we have, ABC, we feel like we should go with A, things like that. Or we talk about it internally and say, what is the best option? What are the pros and cons here? What's the next step forward?
So you heard it from Jennifer, communication.
Yeah, well, we keep saying it, but there really is absolutely, the most valuable thing that you can do is communicate. And I feel when I'm informed, I feel better. So I feel like that's how other people feel. They want to feel informed. They want to be, in the know, and then they want a solution.
Absolutely. I think the best project managers are the ones that are able to communicate, right? And that, like you said, matching it to the person you're communicating to, what level of information do they need? What level of information will they understand in order to make their decision? And it all comes back to, you have so much technical skill, but the person you're interfacing with does not always have that. So how are we
Exactly.
communicating to them in a way that they can make this decision in the best interest of the project and themselves? But also they don't have an engineering degree, right?
Right. And
Or they
some
might not.
do.
Some do, and they're gonna ask for totally different things, and you just gotta be
Ex-
ready for both.
Exactly. You do kind of have to be ready for both. And then, we in the land development world, we deal with many different people. And yeah, you really truly have to understand the communication. And sometimes maybe, like we were saying, we don't know if this person has a technical background. So we might be talking in more simplistic terms and they turn around and say, no, it's okay. I understand what you're talking
You can
about.
use the big words, I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I've been here before and, we've got experience with other projects and we understand and that's okay. You can keep me, up to speed on everything from that technical perspective. So it really truly is a balance, but it's learning that communication style and balance and what you need to do when. So,
And I'll even add in there, we teach this a lot in our programs. We do project management training. And one thing is it's okay to ask someone when you're first working with them what their preferred communication style is.
mhm,
Do they like emails? Are they a text person? Are they
exactly.
gonna never if it goes in their email, will it die there? Like those are
Um,
things that it's okay to ask because you want this to be successful. And it doesn't even have to be you can just be like, hey, my preferred communication is, and also here's how we will be giving these updates around XYZ, because some things do need to happen a certain way, right? But having those conversations early on can be so fruitful.
yeah, I completely agree. And we will try to do that. Actually internally we do some uh employee relations activities that can allow us to help identify people's personalities and, actually really understand what's the best method for specific individuals. Some people who like more open and direct, some people who like emails, some people who hate teams, things like that. We can talk about stuff like that. But to your point, yeah, like we have, some clients that really appreciate the phone call. They want it to be, from a more personal, maybe personable experience. And then we have people who are just fine with receiving email updates. They want one daily, they want one weekly, or something like that. So yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head with that for sure, of understanding each person's style and how you proceed. And you can ask, you could say, this is how we typically do things, how, but we're happy to adapt to whatever works best for you. And that's a really good skill to have and to say up front. So yeah.
Absolutely. And as a project manager, you're out there, you're representing your firm, right? So you want your client to want to come back to your firm. So establishing like how they like to communicate is so
Yeah.
essential. That builds that relationship and that trust, which is going to help the entire project, which helps both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the number one way to market is to do good work, right?
Absolutely.
And that keeps your clients coming back, and you want them to keep coming back. And to that end, you want them to be able to feel comfortable telling you, like,
Absolutely.
maybe this style worked and something has changed, or whatever, maybe it doesn't work. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jennifer. I think that a lot of that was really insightful, and I think our audience will really enjoy hearing your perspective on all that. One last thing I like to ask everybody for, as project managers, we have a lot of opinions, or as someone in a firm, we have thoughts. If firm leaders listening today could improve just one thing to strengthen project outcomes, where should they start?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So like investing early and intentionally in like leadership and communication development, not just the technical development, which we really do try to do on a day-to-day basis. And we try to expose our employees to that. So technical skills are essential, right? But your project success is determined by communication and trust, coordination, and leadership. So, those are the skills that keep your teams aligned and keep your clients confident that you can do the work. So, when things become uh, complicated, like, right, you need to take a step back. So, teaching that early on, being very, very intentional with the type of trainings that we do and exposing people. So, firms, yeah, they create a good culture by being transparent and being open and being honest. So again, yeah, I've always believed that transparency and information earn respect. And if from firm leadership, that's what should be conveyed, all the way down from the highest person to the lowest person. And, we really do an excellent job of doing that. And people feel empowered when they are, when there's ownership and when they have all the details. So it really translates into stronger project outcomes.
I could not agree more. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jennifer. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I hope we cross paths again sometime.
I hope so. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the questions. Thank you.
Please remember, you can find the show notes for this episode at aecpmpodcast.com. There you'll find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as any links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, I wish you the best in all of your engineering project management endeavors.